Erum að fara að byrja hérna. Ég með hann Will Stowe, sem CTO hjá NetApp. Þannig byrjum Black Belt frá Microsoft. Mikið innleiðingu hjá Microsoft í storage-lausnum á sínum tíma og mikið hybrid uppsendingu. Og ég ætla ekki að hafa þetta lengra og ég ætla bara að gefa yfir Will, over to you.
Great. Thanks, Omar, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank you in advance for your time. It's great to be able to have an opportunity to speak with everyone here today. My name is Will Stowe, as Omar mentioned in the introduction there. I'm part of the Office of the CTO at NetApp. I am based in Austin, Texas, in the United States, where I think we have something in common, where it's probably icy where you are. It's also icy where I am as well. We are all freezing our tail feathers off here in Texas. It is cold. With that said, we'll get things moving. So just to kind of start the show off here, I just want to kind of highlight all the cool things that NetApp has been working on in the cloud. We are, a very storage data-centric company, and we don't run from that. We embrace that. We love data, but we are also working on different elements of data and also analytics of data, of insight into your data, those kind of things. And what we have here is a kind of the menu, if you will, of what we have available inside of our portfolio today. Everything from storage to integration with Kubernetes, with Trident and CSI drivers, data protection and data portability with containers, to backup for SaaS applications, to native built into cloud portfolio services, like we'll talk about today with Azure NetApp Files. All this to say that we are staying very busy and very dedicated to working with the public cloud as a whole, Azure, AWS, GCP. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming down the pike. We're really excited about 2021 and should be really some cool stuff coming down here really soon. So moving on from that, let's talk about cloud storage, Azure cloud storage specifically. What I have found in the past, working with customers at my time at Microsoft, working with Microsoft today around Azure NetApp Files and other services we provide, is that when customers, enter into the cloud, they typically see cloud storage as a panacea, as this unlimited bucket of capacity that they can do anything they want with, and there's really no additional need for any other types of storage services. Rapidly, customers find out that unless all of their applications are based on object storage, that story runs out of steam pretty quick. And what I mean by that is that object storage is awesome. It does a lot of cool things, but it doesn't do everything. It offers things like a really big namespace. So when I'm creating an Azure storage account, general purpose storage account, those kind of things, I can go through and have a huge namespace that I can address from my applications, and that's great. I can also use those the containers inside of my accounts for data storage of really any kind. The challenge you run into though with that is that you have applications that are POSIX compliant, meaning they're used to using a file system or a block device or a UNC path or NFS or whatever. Moving those over to object storage is rather challenging. And that's where, there's been this resurgence of NAS, where, in many cases, customers kind of felt NAS was on the way out of the door and not really relevant, given object storage is a thing. We've all come to realization very rapidly that you absolutely still need it. And what customers have been doing for many, many years is to get around this problem is they would go through and they would build inside of IaaS virtual machines using Azure Page Blob and now Azure Managed Disks. They would build virtual machines. They'd build Windows servers. They'd build Linux servers. They'd have problems with scaling and performance, the complexity of managing all that, and frankly, some customers have never built a Windows box to be able to provide, say, SMB performance type storage. So it was error prone. It was kind of kludgy for customers who had experience doing that. There was the idea that I don't think I'd be doing this anymore if I'm going to the cloud. I came from an on-prem data center with a very large and expensive storage array that does all this stuff for us. So it was kind of a flashback, if you will. So I'm kind of jumping around my slide here just to kind of tell the story. So there's two elements so far. There's object storage that's available today. There's IaaS or appliances you can deploy to the marketplace, backed by Azure Managed Disks. Then there's also things like Azure Files, Azure NetApp Files. Azure Files is sort of the Azure NetApp Files distant cousin, and then it's based off of object storage. So it's taking and providing an overlay of object storage with POSIX-based protocols. So it's going to give you things like SMB today, NFS 401 in preview. The challenge you run into Azure Files is that there can be some oddball gotchas as you go down that journey of playing with Azure Files, where there's interesting things they do with throughput in terms of, like, you have, say, a database file you want to run, Oracle, SAP, those kind of things, where a database file may have lots of IO, lots of reads, lots of writes. Azure Premium Files tends to run out of gas pretty fast because your performance is based on the entire, is based on individual files, not the entire volume. So what that means is that an individual file can only drive so much IO. ANF works a little bit differently. And then you also have things like file size limitations. Azure Files just increased the limit from 1 terabyte to 4 or terabytes to 4 terabytes in this case. So they are increasing those limits, but again, this can be problematic for customers that go down this road. So what to do? I have lots of choices here where I can put my data. This is really, even where we are today in 2021, really speaks to why we have Azure NetApp Files, which is a joint offering, a Microsoft native service that we have built alongside with Microsoft, with the Azure storage team, Azure networking team, to provide fully managed file services inside of Azure. So it's not a marketplace solution. It's fully baked into Azure as a native service, meaning that you as an Azure customer, when you have a monetary commit and you're using Azure today for, Azure SQL, Databricks, Synapse, whatever you're doing, you would pay out of a common bucket, your monetary commit. ANF, Azure NetApp Files, comes out of that same bucket of money, right? So it is a full native Microsoft service. It's backed by ONTAP, which is our storage operating system that's well over 25 years old at this point now. I say that number not to make it sound old and kludgy, but very secure and very robust. It is like Linux, like Unix, been around a long time, and with that, it is very hardened and very secure and very good at what it does. In this case here, it is storage management. ONTAP is incredibly high performant, provides some really cool features for data protection that we over time are exposing through the ANF service that customers can take advantage of. And I'll talk more about that here in just a second. Allows for some really cool stuff in terms of data replication. It is very secure. It is we're using FIPS 140-2 compliant for data at rest. So there's service managed keys that encrypt all the data. No one can read it except you, the customer. It can use Azure IAM or role-based access control to lock down who can do what, when, and where, as from the control plane level, meaning through Azure. And you also can apply NTFS or mode bits or NFS 4.1 ACLs to data at the data layer. So you have multiple layers of data protection that you can provide for security for knowing who has access to that data. Quickly, how ANF is structured is that basically we are, and right now we're still in a waitlist mode, which means that when you go into the Azure portal and do a search for NetApp, I'll do a live demo here in just a second and show you what I'm talking about. But when you do a search for NetApp inside of the Azure portal, you'll see Azure NetApp Files. If you're not if your account's not already waitlisted for that, you will be directed to a site you can go through and basically put in your email address and your contact information, and then someone will reach out to you within a couple hours. They'll get you listed and enabled for that and get you ready to go so you can start using the service. Once that piece is done, you can then begin using the service and creating accounts in different regions. So we're in over majority of the major regions today. There's so many, like there's 20 plus at this point, won't rattle them all off. But you can go through and create an account that would give you the ability to provision storage in that region. Now, ANF is region specific, meaning in this case here, I would have storage in this example of US East and US West 2. So those would be pools of storage that could be consumed inside of that region. So if I have multiple availability zones in that region, they can all consume storage in that pool. but that pool of storage is not available across regions yet. That's something we plan to do in the future, meaning being able to access a pool of storage from one Azure region over, say, a peered network to another. Doesn't work today, but is planned for a future release. Once you configure your account, you can configure a capacity pool. So this is your unit of billing, where you would go through and provision your pool. That's where you have different service levels that are associated with performance and price points for those performance levels. And then from there, you can provision volumes. Volumes can be or start off at a minimum size of 100 gigabytes in size and can scale up to 100 terabytes in size. So this is really the cool thing about NAS, is that in contrast to a block device, which you have to go through and talk to the operating system and have to resize it and have to figure out how to expand file systems and all that stuff, NAS doesn't have any of those limitations. You can literally go through and resize it on the fly. And with ANF, that would give you more capacity and more performance, which gets to my next piece here around service levels, where there's 3 service levels for ANF today: standard, premium, and ultra. Different price points, different performance levels for each. So standard will give you, 16 megabytes of performance per provision terabyte. Premium will give you 64, and ultra gives you 128. What that means is you can use these performance levels to adjust your application performance based upon your needs. So you may start with an application that starts out really hot and needs lots of performance, but needs to scale back down because of use or lack of use, I should say. Want to adjust a price point. You can do that very, very easily. Go back. My slides aren't behaving. Sorry about that. You can go back and you can adjust these up or down. You can move between service levels. You can adjust the quota on the volume and the capacity pools all dynamically, all in real time. So it gives you lots of flexibility in terms of what you need for your application's performance. I'm going to show a demo of this here in just a second in real time, but just to kind of make the point and drive it home, in terms of if I have an application that I'm running inside of Azure NetApp Files and I need more performance, it's really as simple as knowing the service level that I'm in today, standard, premium, or ultra, which gives me a certain level of throughput per terabyte, and then my volume quota. And then once I multiply those 2 numbers together, that's going to give me my aggregate throughput, how much performance I'm going to get from that volume. So if I need more performance, I simply increase my volume quota size, and in real time, my performance will shoot up or go down based on my needs. So I'm going to pause there for a second. What I'd like to kind of level set here is I'm showing really kind of 2 products here today around Azure. First off, is kind of level set around what's available in Azure today at a very, very high level, given the time, obviously, and then show Azure NetApp Files, which is our service with Microsoft that we've co-developed with them. But we also have a marketplace offering inside of Azure, and it's known as Cloud Volumes on Tap. And what that allows you to do is that Cloud Volumes on Tap and Azure NetApp Files, they both offer storage, and they offer very good performance and high performance for both. One gives you more control. One gives you more of a managed service, where Azure NetApp Files is a truly managed service end to end. You're not managing storage. You're just simply consuming storage. Cloud Volumes on Tap gives you more control of that experience and allows you to deploy a single instance of an appliance or an HA instances that you can have a redundancy in a region and have more of the ONTAP native experience, meaning access to things like my storage efficiency, Snap Mirror, Flex Clone, access to a block protocol over iSCSI, things like that, a more NetApp ONTAP-esque experience. And what I try to tell customers is that if you are very seasoned with ONTAP and you have that experience in your data center or in another location today, and that's what you need for your applications, then in many cases, Cloud Volumes on Tap is going to be your answer, at minimum in the short term, as you start moving your workflows over to more cloud native solutions. For customers who have very high performance needs, who don't want to manage storage any longer, that's where ANF really adds a lot of value, where ANF, again, is a managed service. You do not have to manage any of the storage whatsoever. We provide all that to you as a managed service, or by way of Microsoft, provide all that to you as a managed service. You don't have to think about aggregates and quotas and any of that stuff. It just goes. It does what it's supposed to do. So and depending on the customer, you may have a consumption of one or the other or both to solve certain business challenges and needs. But that's why we have two of them, right? So with the level set out of the way, let's talk about CVO. Cloud Volumes ONTAP is provisioned through a solution we call Cloud Manager. I'm going to show that here in just a second as well. And what it allows you to do is spin up an instance or an HA pair of Cloud Volumes ONTAP inside the cloud of your choice. So this is available inside of, obviously, Azure. We're talking about Azure today, but also GCP and AWS. It allows you to manage and replicate data using our SnapMirror array-based replication engine, really from anywhere to anywhere. Meaning, if you have ONTAP on-prem and you want to replicate your data into Azure, you can do that. If you want to replicate from Azure to GCP, you can do that. If you want to move from AWS to Azure, you can do that. It's an engine that allows for, block-based replication from wherever to wherever, as long as you have an ONTAP instance on either side of the wire. It also provides things like data storage efficiencies. So this is one thing ANF does not provide to you, is things like dedupe and compression. The service still does that, but it's kind of baked in as part of our operating cost, if you will, to provide a managed service. With CVO, you're able to reap the gains of all of those things. So you can have deduplication, you can have compression of your data sets, and allows you to save a great deal of money of your storage costs overall, because you can allow the appliance to shrink that footprint down. It also allows for data tiering. So you can also replicate our move cool blocks of disk of data on disk into object storage. So in this case here with Azure, that could be as an Azure storage account, where you can set different policies on tiering so that you can push out as much as like 90% of the footprint that instance is managing into object storage. One last thing here is that with Cloud Manager, let me go back one slide, sorry. So there's a lot of NetApp Management Suite tools that you can use alongside of Cloud Volumes ONTAP with Cloud Manager. So things like System Manager, On Command, Workflow, Insight, Unified Manager, all those tools still work with CVO. And this is really what I find for customers who are in a hybrid model and they're using NetApp on-prem today, where CVO just makes a lot of sense for them to pick up their workloads, that they want to preserve that workflow end-to-end of using things like SnapCenter, System Manager. Maybe they're doing WFA still. They have a workflow built around that data set, and they can use that and just pick it up and then move it over into Azure or AWS or GCP. You can also use this for disaster recovery. Given that you have SnapMirror, you can use this for replicating data sets really easily into Azure, which I see customers do very commonly, where they want to get out of an additional data center they're using for disaster recovery purposes. They're using the cloud instead, which makes a lot of sense. You can use SnapMirror from your ONTAP instances in your data centers today and replicate those data sets directly into the cloud. Okay, so how we provision Cloud Volumes ONTAP is done through a tool called System Manager, Freudian slip, Cloud Manager. It's all System Manager on the last slide there. You can use it for both. Cloud Manager is what we are using for management and deployment of both Cloud Volumes ONTAP and a wide variety of other services that we have available inside of the public clouds. I'm going to just have this slide here and just show you what that is in terms of what it provides as a high level. And I'm going to do a live demo of that here in a second. So Cloud Manager is something we're going to cover here in just a moment. I want to do 2 more slides and I'm going to get into the live demo just based on time here. So let's talk about what we've covered so far. We've talked about object storage, virtual machines with managed disks. We've talked about Azure files, Azure NetApp files, and Cloud Volumes ONTAP. So lots of options, right? From our perspective around Cloud Volumes ONTAP and Azure NetApp files, some of the scenarios and workloads we see customers using both of those platforms for would be for migration of data from your existing cloud or your data center into Azure. And ANF and CVO make a great location for landing both of those. Again, if you're looking at POSIX compliant workloads or you're using NFS, SMB, if you maybe have some requirements from some block storage with Icelandic that's shared, that's where you can use ANF and CVO to help bring those workloads to fruition to migrate those over into Azure and have a successful deployment where you have best of breed protocols, you have really good data management services all built into that platform. That's one piece of it in terms of migration or lift and shift. The other piece is for building out new applications. We have lots of customers today with both ANF and CVO that are building out applications running in virtual machines, running inside of containers that have never been in a data center at all. They started out day one running inside of the cloud, and that's where they're going to stay in probably perpetuity. They're going to stay there for years. But they're born in the cloud. They're running in a container. They're running in an application stack that's running inside of IaaS or a container a service inside of the cloud. And again, the needs of these applications and services, they still have a requirement to be able to read and write data from a shared source. So again, NFS, especially for open source applications, this makes a ton of sense because every operating system from Sun OS 5 up can talk NFS. So it makes a lot of sense to use NFS version 3, version 4.1 for my applications. They're very fast protocols. They're very secure. I can do a lot of things with them in terms of flexibility. And it just gives me a more consistent model of data access. The other piece is there are a lot of cool services that the cloud providers are building rapidly, right? And those services are provided and they can be deployed probably faster than we can build them on our own. And that's why we're running inside of these 3 hyperscalers, right? Things like using Azure Synapse or HD Insight, Databricks, there are a few examples there, AKS for containers. We can still use shared storage with practically all of those solutions, right? So rather than us building our own, rolling our own, compute stack or an app stack, we can just use what's available inside of the hyperscaler with our own data. And we can, again, in many cases, use NFS for this or SMB. So again, ANF, Cloud Volumes on Tap, makes a lot of sense. I can have my data sitting in one common pool of storage where I'm not having to silo it here and silo it there. I can have it sitting all in one location where I provide consistent data management, data protection, and policies against that data set, but have it accessible across a wide variety of computing services, right? Virtual machines, database services, analytic services, things like cluster compute jobs with Spark, those kind of things can all pull from, in many cases, NFS. So again, using what's already there inside the cloud, I can leverage my storage solutions with NetApp, Cloud Volumes on Tap, Azure NetApp Files as a backing storage for those solutions. Get a little bit deeper down the stack here. What do we see customers actually doing since we've been providing these services into the wild? Everything from as not as exciting as it would sound, home directories for customers doing VDI or compute in the cloud, where you have to have your data accessible to you for your personas, your users logging into their services, those kind of things. Not the sexiest workload in the world, but certainly required and needed. There's other things like databases, Oracle, SAP, SQL Server, MariaDB, etc., that require, in many cases, lots of performance, lots of throughput, low latency, but I still want to be able to protect it with data protection, snapshots, replication, etc. Everything from all those chip design with EDA, media and entertainment, collaboration tools, all these things are workloads we have on NetApp storage running in the cloud today. And in many cases, these customers have never seen a NetApp box in a data center at all, but they're taking advantage of NetApp technologies in our data platform in the cloud and using it very successfully today. One last slide, I swear, then we're going to do a live demo. I just want to touch on the fact that automation is huge inside of NetApp, and we provide lots of cool tools for customers to be able to do automation at scale. So this is one small example of using Flex clones with Cloud Volumes on Tap, where you can go through and, as part of the SDLC, go through and create a copy of my production data set, clone that rapidly in about a second, present that back out as a copy of that data, very thin and quick to my developers, my UAT groups, etc., so they can access that data, tear it down when they're done, and then continue operations from there. We provide tools like this. This is very abstract, I know. Get with me one-on-one after this for more details if you want to know more. But we provide lots of cool tools like this across either native REST APIs, Azure CLI, Terraform, Ansible, etc., that you can go through and orchestrate and automate our storage solutions, either ANF or CVO, across multiple clouds concurrently if you want to. It allows for this ability to do this type of automation that you can put into a CI/CD pipeline for a variety of workflows and be able to do this stuff at scale. Very, very neat stuff. Very proud of this effort. Okay, I'm going to stop my slide, and now I want to go over to Azure and show you a quick demo of Azure NetApp Files. And we have time, I'll cover Cloud Manager and a few other things as well. Okay, so how do I find Azure NetApp Files? I'm going to start with the Azure portal, go to my little hamburger menu in the top corner of the screen, click on All Services, and here I'll just type in NetApp, and you'll see Azure NetApp Files as a native Azure service. I'll go through and create a storage account, which I already have a few of these in my regions. I'm going to use one that's already there just for the sense of time. The next step I would do is provision a capacity pool. I have a pool already provisioned here. Let's go ahead and fire up a new one. And we'll give it the really unique and creative name of Test2. If you see here, when I click on service level, I have 3 to choose from. This is the standard, premium, and ultra. So different performance and price points depending on my needs, okay? My minimum buy here is 4 terabytes. This can be increased up to 500 terabytes if I need to. And I'll hit OK. And once I hit OK, this will allow me to now provision storage from that new capacity pool. I can now go into volumes, choose add volume. I'm going to give my volume a name. Again, super creative, test vol 02. I'm going to land that on my virtual network here, Hero Core VNet, onto this delegated subnet as part of my virtual network. I'm going to choose review and create, and we'll choose create. Now, everything I've gone through so far here in the portal, like basically everything else in Azure and the last slide I covered, can be done end to end using really any flavor of automation ice cream you prefer. It could be in that REST API, it could be Azure CLI, it could be Azure PowerShell, it could be Terraform, it could be Ansible. Lots of options, lots of flexibility. Depends on what you're doing with your automation today. So you can do this very, very quickly. My volume is now spun up. I can go to my resource. To mount this volume is super easy. I'm just going to go to mount instructions. I'm going to follow my breadcrumbs here. I've already kind of done all this connect to a virtual machine stuff here. That's done. What I really care about is just creating a mount point, and I want to go through and I want to create my mount point here on the root of my file system, and I'm going to mount that volume. So I've got my mount point created, and I'm going to go through and mount this via NFS on my Linux host here. And if I do a df-h-t NFS, I can see I actually have 2 volumes mounted. I have test vol 02, which we just created in, I don't know, 30 seconds end to end. And I can now go through and start consuming storage on that new volume. Very, very simple to do. This can be consumed via virtual machine. It can be consumed via container. One last thing I'll show here, and I'll do a quick time check with my good friend Omar and make sure we're still okay. I'm going to go out and just show how we do performance. So I'm going to do a quick run of FIO against an existing 1 terabyte volume that I have running inside of my environment now. Oh, my bad. Bear with me a second here. I was in the wrong directory trying to create new files. We don't want that. Let's go back over to Azure. Go here, here. So I have my 2 volumes, test vol 01. This is a little slow here because my volume is very small, which means my throughput is not going to be super grandiose. All right, come back to me.
I have a quick comment here that they asked it to be full screen.
Oh, yes, of course. Absolutely. Oh, that might be a little too big there. 1 second. Sorry for the hiccup, folks. This is a quick error on my side. There we go. All right, now we're back. Let's go to FIO data. Let me put this guy back. There it was. So we have a 1 terabyte volume, and what I'm doing here, that's kind of the moving and the shaking I'm doing here, is I had already created some of my FIO files I can use for testing bandwidth, right? And I wasn't in the right subdirectory, my fault. What happens is when FIO doesn't see the test data, it will try to generate new test files. That's why I wanted to go back in and go actually to the folder that I actually already created my test files in, so I can just start generating some load. But what I want to show you here is that if you look at this value right here for R equals 16.4.5 megabytes a second, what you're seeing there is a 1 terabyte volume in Azure NetApp files right here, 1 terabyte. This is going to give me this is a standard service level volume. So standard capacity pools will give you 16 megabytes a second per provision terabyte. A premium will give you 64, and ultra will give you 128. So what that means is that my 1 terabyte volume at a standard service level will give me 16 megabytes of throughput. But if I want more throughput, all I have to do is go through and resize that volume, which I'll do here. I'll just double the size, and that's going to double the pleasure and double the fun and double the bandwidth. So as I click OK, give that a few seconds, and you'll see that'll go from 16 to 32, right? I don't have to be a storage whiz kid to know that. It's simple math. It's not that hard to figure out. No aggregates to manage and maintain. No blocks, block storage or rebalance. It just works. If I want even more bandwidth, I can do that as well. In this case, my capacity pool is getting a little tight on real estate, so I'm going to bump that up from 4 terabytes to 40 terabytes. I'll resize my pool. That's going to give me more real estate to get more bandwidth out of my volumes. So I can go back to my volume now that's already running that performance test, right? Still running here. We're doing 32 megabytes a second. I'll go back to test vol 01. I'm going to choose resize, and I'm going to put a 0 on the end of this guy and take it from 2 terabytes to 20 terabytes. And we'll watch what the bandwidth does here. And when we see it shoot up by a factor of 10, and we have more bandwidth just like that. So the point here, guys and gals, I want to drive home is it's very, very easy to consume Azure NetApp files and not have to know anything about storage at all. And this is, again, talking about the two services. I can deliver very, very good performance with Cloud Volumes on tap, but it's a virtual machine. So there's trade-offs, right, in terms of what I want to be able to do for my workloads. ANF and CVO are like chocolate and peanut butter, right? They work in many cases better together to solve different challenges and use cases. That's when we have two different products that are available to customers. For customers who want to be able to do things from the cloud, Azure native, and not manage any storage at all, you have ANF. If you want to be able to have more control over your storage, more of that native NetApp experience, you can deploy a single instance or an HA pair instances of Cloud Volumes on tap and have more dials and have more control of your storage. So it depends on your use cases, depends on what experience you're looking to achieve. We just want to really solve problems for both ends of the spectrum ultimately with our storage services here. And with that, I'll stop my monologue and answer any questions. Apologies if I went too long or more. I apologize.
No, it's okay. You're fine still.
Okay.
Yeah, we were thinking about showing something else. If you have time, we got a good 5 minutes if you want to do something.
Okay.
More.
Excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been watching the question area. There's no questions yet, but.
Okay, cool. So let's show one last thing here. So on that note, so Cloud Manager is how we manage Cloud Volumes on tap inside of all of the clouds. So this is a SaaS service that's provided through cloud.netapp.com, which if you haven't been there, you should take a look. Really cool website. Through here, we have our Fabric view that allows you to go through and spin up Cloud Volumes on tap instances. You can also do things with replication between instances. You can do backup of data. You can have CVO tie into a Kubernetes cluster. We have all kinds of stuff we have available inside of this experience. To show one quick part of this, I'll just show you how you would spin up Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance inside of the cloud. So I'm going to go into Cloud Manager, logged in here with my account. I'm going to choose Add Working Environment. You can choose Microsoft Azure, and you can see we can provision a single node of Cloud Volumes ONTAP and high availability instance, and also Azure.
Excuse me, quick, could you make it full screen? Sorry.
I sure can. Yep. Sorry about that. My apologies. Let's see. Is that easier to view, guys?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, sorry about that. So from here, I can deploy one or multiple nodes of CVO. I can also deploy Azure NetApp files if I wanted to from Cloud Manager. So there's, again, lots of ways to consume these services. I'm going to choose a single node instance of CVO, Cloud Volumes ONTAP. I'll choose Continue. And so from here, we can go through and give our new cluster name a name. So we'll just give this guy a Testo3. We'll give it a password. Bear with me a second here. Okay, sorry. Okay, there we go. Do not save the password. Okay, so now I'm going to choose which options I want to enable for my Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance. I can choose things like Cloud Compliance, which is our ability to go through and scan data sets for GDPR compliance and a variety of other certifications and data compliance offerings. We can also do a backup to cloud. This allows for me to be able to do a backup of my Cloud Volumes ONTAP instance directly over to object storage, and also I can tie it into monitoring. This is our Cloud Insights offering here, that you can go through and provide monitoring in real time of these solutions. So I can choose my availability zones, my region, depending on where I want to deploy this to. I'm going to choose my VNet here. I can choose my subnet. So the cool thing about Cloud Manager is it can tie into your AWS or your GCP or your Azure experience as a service account and have visibility in these existing things inside of your subscription. So it can go through and it knows which regions that you're deployed in, and it knows where your VNets are, and knows where your subnets are. And it just allows you to go through and follow that via an existing workflow that you already have, or infrastructure that you already have. I can choose security groups here if I want to deploy a new security group, an existing one or a new one. I'll hit continue. I can choose what type of licensing model I want to go with, pay as you go or bring your own license. There's a price break point in there where bring your own license makes more sense over a period of time, but you can also pay by the hour as well. There's nothing wrong with that. This is a really cool feature I like, is the ability to go through and choose from a kind of a menu, pre-configured packages depending on what your needs might be. So for your kicking the tires, proof of concept workloads, everything from that to the highest performing instance we have on a DS5 with up to 368 terabytes of capacity, and anything in between, I can mouse over and I can see these and then choose from which one's going to give me my best options, or I can roll my own if this does not fit the bill. I'm going to choose my POC one here. I can create a new volume if I want to, and also the protocol I want to expose that volume as part of this workflow as well. I'm just going to skip that for now. And then all I have to do is check these two boxes, and this will go through and just give you a quick pre-flight checklist of what's going to happen prior to Cloud Manager spinning up your instance. So we're going to go through and just make sure we're good. We can actually see the API request here of what's going to happen by way of our REST command here. We're going to do a post, and here's the JSON body with everything making up that instance. So again, getting back to automation and programmability, we give you all this and expose it to you. So if you want to do this in the future, you already have the JSON body and how you would apply this into your APIs to be able to deploy this instance by way of Cloud Manager on your own. All right. Once I hit go, it's going to begin to deploy that instance of Cloud Volumes ONTAP inside of my subscription and the resource group and the VNet and the subnet that I specified. And this will take about 5 minutes. And when it's done, and it's supposed to be ready to go, and I can then manage it like you see these other instances here on the screen, right? I can go in, I've already got one running here. I can turn on replication, I can turn on backups, I can connect it to a Kubernetes cluster with Trident and CSI drivers. I can do all kinds of cool stuff with Cloud Manager through the UI here very, very easily. Okay, I'll pause there for any additional questions. I think I had like 5 more minutes left. Don't want to abuse my time. Questions, comments, concerns?
Oh, we haven't got any yet. Maybe they're just soaking it in.
Yep, understood. Okay. We'll let that brew for a minute here. In terms of, Omar, what I wanted to show you and the great group of people here, I have gone through all that content. So while we wait for any questions, if there's any out there, if not, that's okay too. I want to thank everyone for your time and allowing me to come in here and talk about NetApp Cloud Solutions for a few minutes with you and the team.
Yeah, cool. Thank you very much. It's been really interesting.
Excellent. All right, I will stop sharing my side of the screen and give the ball back to you, my friend.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you're finished? Yeah.
Yep, we're all done, man.
Yep. Well done. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was, like I said, really interesting. I don't see any question coming into the Q&A panel. So, so I'll just thank you very much for this interesting introduction.
Okay, Omar, thank you for your time. I'll drop. You guys have a great weekend and take care.
Yeah, thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Och